The room went silent for exactly 11 seconds. Barack Obama set the folder on the table. He did not open it. He did not need to. Donald Trump sat across from him in the studio chair, and for the first time in the entire interview, his mouth had stopped moving. The smile that had carried him through 3 decades of boardrooms and green rooms and camera rooms, that smile had frozen like a mask someone had forgotten to take off. The late-night host, halfway through a question he would never finish, had already gone quiet. In the wings, Ivanka Trump's hand had found her mouth. Somewhere in the back row of the audience, a man in a blue dress shirt shifted in his seat and then stopped, because the air in the room had changed in a way that made movement feel wrong. Obama looked at the folder, then he looked at Trump, then he looked back at the folder. 11 seconds. But to understand how Trump ended up frozen in that chair, how a man who had never lost a room his entire life sat there with something in his eyes that looked a lot like fear, we have to go back 3 weeks earlier, to the morning Obama walked into a small office in Washington and picked up a phone. It started the way most things start in Washington, with a phone call that was supposed to be routine. Obama was at his office in downtown Chicago. The building was old, the kind of old where the elevator still had brass handles, and the hallways smelled faintly of floor wax and decades of quiet ambition. He had been there for an hour, reading through a stack of documents that his team had compiled over 6 months. The phone rang at 9:47 in the morning, Chicago time, a number he did not recognize. It was the producer from the network. They wanted Trump on the show. Trump had agreed, but Trump had one condition. "He wants you there," the producer said. "No co-host, no guest, just you and him." Obama was quiet for a moment. On his desk, a cup of tea sat cooling. The steam had thinned to almost nothing. "He wants to debate," Obama asked. "He wants to talk," the producer said. "That's what he says you're friends." The word sat in the air between them, friends. "I'm not sure that's the word I would use," Obama said. The producer laughed nervously. "Look, I'm just the messenger, but if you say no, the whole thing falls apart. He only agreed if you were sitting across from him. Otherwise, it's just him on a stool doing his act, and that's not what we want." Obama looked at the folder on his desk. It was thin, maybe 30 pages. He had read every page 4 times. "Tell him yes," Obama said. He hung up the phone. He picked up the folder. He opened it again for the 5th time that week, and he read the first page one more time. Then he closed it. And he waited. Trump arrived at the studio the way Trump always arrived. 20 minutes late, with the energy of a man who believed that time was something that worked for him and not the other way around. The studio was small for a setup this size. The producers had made it intimate on purpose. A round table, 2 chairs, no barrier between the audience and the conversation. They wanted the feeling of something that could not be controlled. They wanted sparks. Trump walked in wearing a navy suit that was almost the right size. Almost. The shoulders sat a fraction too wide, like the tailor had been given instructions to make him look larger rather than to fit him properly. He had a red tie, and the tie was a little too long, and the whole effect was something between a man who had dressed himself and a man who had been dressed by someone who wanted to please him. He saw Obama at the table, and his face did the thing it always did. The quick calculation, the assessment, the decision about what version of himself to be. "Barack," Trump said, and he spread his arms like they were old friends meeting at a reunion. "Good to see you, good to see you. How are you doing?" Obama stood. He wore a charcoal suit, well-fitted, quiet. No cufflinks that caught the light. No watch that screamed for attention. He extended his hand. "Donald," Obama said, "good to see you." They shook. Trump's grip was firm in the way that always felt like a demonstration rather than a greeting. Obama let go quickly and sat down. The audience was already in place, about 80 people, packed into the rows close enough to hear breathing. Some of them were supporters, some were not. The producers had not screened for ideology. They wanted the room to feel like the country, unpredictable, combustible, waiting. Trump sat. He crossed his legs. He put one hand on the armrest and rested the other hand on the table, fingers spread, like he was ready to push off at any moment. "So," Trump said, turning to the host, "when do we start? I have a lot to say." The host smiled. "In just a moment, I want to let everyone get settled." "Settled?" Trump laughed. "I'm never not settled. I was born settled, USH. Ud ask Barack. He knows what I'm like when I'm not settled." The audience laughed. Trump looked pleased. He had already taken the temperature of the room and decided that he was in control of it. Obama said nothing. He sat with his hands folded on the table. He looked at the host like he was waiting. The studio lights hummed faintly, that low electrical sound that exists in every room where cameras are rolling, the sound that most people stop hearing after a minute, but that never fully goes away. The first 20 minutes went exactly as Trump planned. He talked about the economy. He talked about foreign policy. He talked about the border, the crime rate, the stock market, his polling numbers, his enemies, his friends, the things he had done, and the things he was going to do. He spoke in long, confident paragraphs that wound around themselves like a river finding its way downhill, never stopping, never doubling back, just moving. Obama listened. That was the thing the audience noticed, if they noticed it at all yet. Obama listened. He did not interrupt. He did not insert himself into the spaces where Trump paused, even when those pauses felt like invitations. He let Trump fill the room, and he sat in the quiet space that Trump left empty, and he waited. The host threw softballs to Trump, and Trump hit them into the stands. The host asked Obama a question about health care, and Obama gave a measured answer, a paragraph, maybe two, and then stopped. Trump was already talking again before Obama's last sentence had finished hanging in the air. It was a performance. Everyone in the room understood it. Trump was not having a conversation, he was putting on a show, and the show was designed to make one person look small. That person was Obama. But here is what the audience did not know yet, what Trump did not know yet, what the host did not know yet. Obama had not come to play the game that was on the table. He had come to play a different game entirely. At the 22-minute mark, the host turned to Obama and asked him about something that had happened 15 years ago. A decision, a moment, the kind of moment that people still argued about in op-eds and podcasts and late-night monologues. Obama took a breath. He leaned back slightly in his chair. "I made the best decision I could with the information I had," he said, "and I stand by it. I've said that before." "But do you regret it?" the host asked. "Any part of it?" Obama paused. He looked at the host. Then he looked at Trump. "Donald, do you remember what you said about this at the time?" The room shifted slightly. Trump's face did something complicated, a flicker of confusion, then a reassessment, then the choice to go confident. "Of course I remember," Trump said. "I said it was a disaster, that anyone could see it was wrong. I was right about that, by the way. Everyone knows I was right." Obama nodded slowly. "You said that on television, on 3 different programs. You called it the worst decision in modern history. You said anyone who supported it was either stupid or corrupt." "I stand by that," Trump said. "It was terrible. It was a disaster." "It was," Obama said quietly. "It was a disaster." The room waited. "And then 6 months later," Obama continued, still speaking quietly, "you gave a speech in Florida where you said the exact same thing, but you called it necessary. You said it was the only option available. You said history would prove you right." Trump's mouth opened, closed. The smile was still there, but something behind it had changed. "You said that," Obama said. "On the record, I have the clip." The studio lights hummed. In the front row, a woman in a gray blazer held her program in both hands, fingers white at the knuckles. Here is what the audience did not know about the folder. 3 weeks before the interview, Obama's team had been doing research, the kind of research that happens in quiet rooms with no press and no cameras. They had been pulling archives, transcripts, footage, the kind of material that exists in databases and server rooms and the back offices of newspapers that no one ever visits. They found something. Trump had built his career on contradiction. Everyone knew that. He had been on both sides of every major issue at some point in his career: the border, healthcare, foreign policy, taxes, trade. He had called things disasters and necessities in the same breath, sometimes within months of each other, sometimes within weeks. The press had documented it. The fact-checkers had documented it. But the documentation was scattered across decades and platforms and formats that no one had ever bothered to assemble into a single place. Until Obama's team assembled it. They did not do it to trap Trump. That is not what this was. They did it because they wanted to understand the pattern, to see if there was one, and if so, what it meant. There was a pattern. Trump did not believe even anything. He believed in winning. The positions he took were not positions, they were tools. They were the shape that the room required him to be, worn like a suit that he put on and took off depending on who was watching. And the folder was the proof. At the 31-minute mark, Obama reached over and opened it. He did not make a show of it. He did not stand up or raise his voice or point at anything. He simply turned the folder around on the table so that the first page faced Trump, and he put one finger on a line of text, and he waited. Trump looked at the page, then he looked at Obama. "What is this?" Trump said. His voice was still loud, still performative, but something had changed in the cadence, a fraction faster, a fraction higher. "You called that one a disaster," Obama said. "And here," he turned the page, 6 months later you called it necessary, on the record, both times. "Everyone changes their mind," Trump said. "That's called being smart. I adapted. That's a strength." "You called it a strength," Obama said. "And here, another page, you called it a weakness. You said anyone who changed their position was a puppet." The room was very quiet. The air had changed. The audience had stopped shifting. There were no more programs being held. No one was breathing too loudly. It was the kind of quiet that feels like the air itself has been cleared, like a stage has been swept and left empty. Trump looked at the folder. He looked at Obama. "You've been planning this?" Trump said. "No," Obama said. "I've been listening for a long time to what you actually say." He turned another page. "This was 2015. You said one thing on Fox and Friends in the morning and the opposite on CBS in the afternoon. Same day, different audience. You said it was about reading the room." Trump's jaw tightened. "But the problem is, Donald," Obama said, and his voice was still quiet, still calm, the way a person speaks when they have said something true and they are not afraid of what happens next. "You forgot that the room has memory, and the room keeps records." He closed the folder. He did not open it again. The silence that followed lasted 9 seconds. 9 seconds is not very long. In the context of a live television broadcast, it is almost nothing. But in the context of Donald Trump sitting across from Barack Obama in front of 80 people with cameras rolling, 9 seconds was an eternity. Trump's face had gone through something. It was not anger exactly. It was not embarrassment. It was the look of a man who had just realized that the game he thought he was playing was not the game that was being played, and that the person across from him had known the rules all along. Ivanka in the wings had stopped smiling. The host had stopped talking. Obama sat with his hands folded. He did not gloat. He did not lean forward. He did not do any of the things that Trump would have done in the same situation. He just sat there and he waited and he let the moment be what it was. This was the thing about Barack Obama that most people missed. They thought his composure was a strategy. They thought it was a performance designed to make him look above the fray. But it was not a performance. It was simply who he was, a man who had learned over decades that the truth does not need to be shouted. It just needs to be placed in the right light, and then it does the rest. Trump tried to recover. He made a joke about the folder. He called it a prop. He said Obama had a team of researchers who fed him lines, that this was all scripted, that the whole thing was a setup. Obama listened. He nodded once, twice, 3 times. He did not argue. He did not defend himself. He just let Trump talk the way he had let Trump talk for the first 20 minutes, and the difference was that now the room could see what the room had been missing. Trump was afraid. Not afraid of Obama, specifically. Not afraid of the folder, exactly. He was afraid of being seen. Of having the machinery of his performance exposed in front of an audience that had, until 9 seconds ago, been on his side. And Obama could see it. You could see him see it. The way his face softened slightly, the way his shoulders dropped just a fraction, the way something in his posture changed from anticipation to something that looked almost like pity. "Donald," Obama said, and his voice was gentle in a way that made the room lean in. "I'm not doing this to hurt you. I'm doing this because you asked me here to talk, and this is what talking looks like." Trump said nothing. "You asked for the conversation," Obama continued. "You said we were friends. You said you wanted to set the record straight." He paused. "The record is straight," Obama said, "and it has been for 30 years. The only question is whether you were ever going to look at it." The final 3 minutes of the interview belonged to Obama, but he did not take them. He answered the host's questions. He spoke about the future, about the country, about the kind of leadership he believed in. He did not mention the folder again. He did not mention the contradictions. He let them exist on the table like evidence that had already been submitted to the jury, and he let the jury be the audience. Trump spoke less. His answers had become shorter. His sentences had lost their performative energy. The long, winding rivers had become small streams, and then puddles, and then silence. He smiled less. He looked at the camera less. He looked at Obama not at all. When the interview ended, Trump stood quickly. He shook Obama's hand, brief, firm, the grip of a man who was already walking toward the door in his mind. He thanked the host. He walked off the stage without looking back. The audience did not applaud the way they had expected to. There was scattered applause, polite applause, the kind of applause that people offer when they do not know what else to do. But it was not the applause of a room that had just witnessed a victory. It was the applause of a room that had just witnessed something else entirely. Afterward, in the green room, Obama sat alone for a moment. The producers had gone to handle logistics. The crew was breaking down the set. The noise of the studio was the mundane noise of work, metal stands being folded, cables being coiled, equipment being packed into cases. Obama looked at the folder. He opened it one more time. He looked at the first page, the one he had turned toward Trump. Then he closed it and he set it aside and he did not open it again. The lesson was not about the folder. The folder was just a tool, a way of organizing information so that it could be seen. The lesson was about something older than politics, older than the moment, older than any particular argument or controversy. The lesson was that truth is patient. It does not need to be loud. It does not need to be performed. It does not need to arrive in a blaze of fury or a roar of indignation. It just needs to be placed in front of someone who has been avoiding it, and then it needs to be left alone, and then it needs time. The room had gone silent for 11 seconds at the beginning of the story and 9 seconds in the middle, and whatever the length of that silence was at the end. The silence after Trump had walked off the stage and Obama had sat alone, and the folder had been closed for the last time. No one had counted it. No one had needed to. Some silences are too long to measure. Trump had spent his whole career believing that the room was a space he could shape, that he could walk in and fill it with his energy and his presence and his performance, and that the room would take the shape he gave it. He believed that the truth was whatever he said it was in the moment, and that memory was a weakness and consistency was a trap. But the room had memory. The room kept records. And when Obama opened the folder, what he was really doing was showing Trump what the room had always known, that the man in the Navy suit with the too wide shoulders and the smile that never reached his eyes had been performing for so long that he had forgotten how to stand still. He had been so busy becoming whatever the moment required that he had lost track of who he was when no one was watching. Obama did not destroy Donald Trump that night. He did not humiliate him. He did not end his career or expose him as a criminal or a fraud. He simply opened a folder and he told the truth and he waited. And the room went silent. Not because Trump had lost, but because for the first time in a very long time, the truth had been placed in the right light, and it had done the rest. If you made it this far, you know the reason people come back to this channel. It's not the drama, it's the detail. The specific fold in the paper, the exact length of the silence, the word that changes everything. That's what we look for. And if this story held your attention for 27 minutes, there's more where this came from.